Ethan didn't plan to stop. The highway stretched empty ahead of him, 4 lanes of quiet asphalt slicing through darkness and fog. The dashboard clock blinked 2:37 a.m., the kind of hour where the world feels half asleep, half dead. He'd been driving for 8 hours straight, coffee gone cold in the cup holder, radio hissing static between distant stations. Every siphon, a truck passed like a moving wall of light and thunder, then vanished into the fog again. The rest stop appeared out of nowhere, a dim green sign glowing weakly through the mist. Rest area 1 mile. He didn't remember seeing it on the map. He didn't remember passing anything for the last 50 miles. He hesitated, then turned the wheel. 5 minutes, he muttered. Bathroom, stretch, coffee. The tires crunched over gravel as he pulled into the lot. The rest stop looked ordinary at first. A single building with flickering fluorescent lights. A vending area. A line of parked cars all empty. Their windshields were beaded with dew, like they'd been sitting for hours, maybe days. He turned off the engine. Silence flooded in, thick and total. When he stepped out, the air felt colder than it should have. The fog clung to his clothes, wet and metallic. A lone streetlight buzzed overhead, the sound thin and nervous. Ethan glanced around. No people, no motion, just stillness. He walked toward the main building, shoes scuffing the wet pavement. The automatic doors stood half open, one side jammed. Inside, the lights hummed, flickering at intervals like a broken heartbeat. He called out, "Hello?" No answer. He stepped inside. The air smelled stale, faintly chemical, a mix of cleaning products and dust. A vending machine near the entrance blinked, out of service. Another one glowed faintly, stocked with snacks that looked wrong. The chip bags were faded, the candy labels off color, the expiration dates unreadable under a layer of grime. Ethan rubbed his eyes. Guess no one's cleaned this place in a while. The bathroom doors stood at the end of the corridor. He pushed the men's door open. Inside, one of the fluorescent tubes was strobing. Light, dark, light, dark. The mirrors were fogged, though there was no steam. He washed his hands anyway just to wake himself up. The water ran ice cold. When he looked up, his reflection was half a second late. He blinked, leaned closer. The delay was real, slight but unmistakable. He raised his hand. The reflection followed, slower than it should have. He let out a shaky laugh. "You need sleep, man." The door behind him creaked. He turned sharply. No one. The door swung gently on its hinges, then stilled. He grabbed his phone. No signal. The time still read 2:37 a.m. That's when he realized the digital clock on the vending machine outside also said 2:37, so did the wall clock above the water fountain. So did the one on the far end of the hallway. He stood there, heart thudding. Okay, that's weird. He walked back outside. The same fog, the same silence. But now there was something new. Faint music, like a radio playing somewhere close. He turned toward the row of parked cars. One of them, an old blue sedan, had its headlights faintly glowing. The radio inside crackled with a soft static hum, just low enough that it sounded like whispering. He stepped closer. The car was empty. The keys still dangled from the ignition. A half-drunk soda sat in the cup holder. The radio flickered through stations. Static, static, then a man's voice whispering, almost kind. "You shouldn't have stopped here." Ethan froze. He leaned down to look closer, but the headlights went out. Everything went silent again. He turned toward his own car. The driver's door was open. He hadn't left it that way. His stomach dropped. He stood completely still, listening. The fog shifted slightly, the way air moves when someone passes through it. Ethan's voice came out a whisper. "Who's there?" Nothing answered, but inside his car, the dashboard clock changed. 38 a.m. Ethan stood by his car door, staring at the dashboard clock like it might explain itself. 2:38 a.m. His own reflection in the driver's side window looked washed out and a little older, as if the glass had stolen color from his face. He shut the door quietly and sucked in a cold breath. The fog swirled and settled, a slow tide across asphalt. Going back inside felt like walking into a mouth. The automatic door sighed, and the fluorescent hum rolled over him again, familiar and wrong. He paused on the threshold. The air smelled different, less like cleaner now, more like damp cardboard and old gum. The vending machines blinked. He had to squint. Something about them had changed. The first machine had held chips and candy. Now, the top row was crammed with a brand he didn't recognize, Crispos, in an off-yellow bag with a smiling mascot that looked half cat, half wolf. The art style was decades old, a kind of 1980s cheap cheer. But the new Starburst had a dented halo, like it had been printed on a printing press that coughed dust. He leaned closer. The expiration date was smudged. No, corrected. Someone had drawn over the year with ballpoint pen. A second machine glowed soft blue. Instead of bottled water and soda, it was stocked with tiny glass milk bottles capped with foil, labels in serif fonts, Creamery Lane and Radio Milk. The condensation inside was too perfect, beating in identical drops like it was painted on. He pressed a knuckle to the glass. Cold. Real. He stepped back and told himself not to buy anything. He wasn't thirsty anymore. On the far wall, a cork bulletin board sagged under warped flyers. He remembered a few missing pet printouts by the door when he arrived. Now there were more, too many. The paper had a drowned look, edges curled, thumbtacks rusted orange. A business card strip advertised 24-hour towing call Donnie in a typeface he hadn't seen since childhood. The number had 7 digits. No area code. Ethan's throat tightened. Okay, he whispered. This place is old. That's all. Old and neglected. He forced a laugh. It skittered away across tile and didn't come back. He drifted deeper down the corridor toward the maps display. The clear plastic rack held state pamphlets in neat colored stacks. He pulled one out, tore the Heartland, and unfolded it. A section of highway he'd driven an hour ago was labeled Under Construction 1997. He stared until the letters blurred. He put it back, not quite aligning the edges, and noticed the rest of the rack. Some maps were crisp, glossy. Others felt like they'd been photocopied 100 times. One was stamped in red, temporarily closed over a photo of the very rest stop he stood in. In the picture, plywood covered the doors, and a chain wrapped through the handles. In the bottom corner, a smeared date, the 6/15. The last 2 digits were erased by a thumbprint. The security camera dome above him clicked. A tiny insect sound. He looked up. A red LED pulsed slowly, heartbeat steady. No sign anyone watched. He raised a hand anyway and waved like an idiot. The camera stared back with its glossy black eye. The bathroom pulled at him again, a stupid impulse to check if the mirror still lagged. He turned the corner. The men's room sign, which had been a generic stick figure before, now showed a different icon, same pose, but the head turned, profile watching the hall. He shook his head, swallowed. Not possible. He pushed the door. Inside, the light had warmed to a sickly peach, like old fluorescent tubes about to die. The mirror over the sinks was cleaner than before. That was the first thing that bothered him. He hadn't touched it, but someone had wiped away the fog and left 2 broad arcs, like the sweep of a large hand. He stepped closer. His reflection didn't lag this time. It moved with him, faithful, normal, until he stopped. Then it didn't. For half a second, the man in the glass took one more step forward. It was a small thing. One extra sway of shoulder, one extra breath he didn't take. Ethan slid backward, scraping rubber soles on tile. The overhead light buzzed as if laughing. He backed out of the bathroom without turning around, the way you creep away from a dog you don't trust. Back at the main room, the radio from the blue sedan crackled again, soft like a memory somebody forgot to turn down. Words surfaced and sank. Eastbound lanes. Static, closure, static, until further. Then the speaker coughed and went quiet. The car itself hadn't moved. The keys still dangled in a way no one would leave them, heavy, ready to fall, balancing on a last tooth. He scanned the lot through the glass doors. Another difference. A white RV at the far end. He was sure hadn't been there. Its blinds down. A plastic flamingo stuck in a potted plant beside the door like it was parked at a beach, not in a fog-swallowed rest area. Its license plate was black text on yellow, the old style his grandfather used to joke about, the sort you only saw in photos. In the fog above its roofline, insects moved in a slow, lazy swirl, except it was 40 degrees and too cold for bugs. Ethan rubbed his temples until colors sparked behind his eyelids. 5 minutes, he told himself again, as if repetition could make time behave. Bathroom stretch, coffee. He looked around for a staffed counter he hadn't noticed. A shuttered kiosk near the back Warrea sign. Cafe. Open. 24 HRS. The metal gate was down. A bell cord dangled beside Asmal cutout. He tugged it. Somewhere inside, a small bell answered, sweet and old-fashioned. No footsteps, no voices. The smell changed again, like someone had just opened air refrigerator full of oranges and old bread. He peered through the slats. Behind the counter, a hot plate sat with a dented kettle. A mug weighted upside down on a saucer, cup ring stained in a perfect circle. He could have sworn the ring was still wet. He didn't know why he said hello a second time. The word felt thinner. Sound had less to hang on to here. He said it again, louder. The security camera clicked again in reply. Polite Asakov. On the bulletin board, a new flyer curled as if drying from fresh ink. Rest area closed for renovation, effective immediately. A line beneath in smaller type read, overnight shutdown may occur without notice. Beneath that, someone had written in pen, it happened while we were still inside. Ethan's scalp crawled. He reached for the paper and stopped himself, as if touching it would confirm a rule he didn't want written on his skin. He turned instead toward the water fountain. Last time, the stream had sputtered. Now, when he pressed the bar, water arced in a perfect silver ribbon, too smooth, too high. He bent to drink and tasted metal and something sweet, like the smell behind the cafe gate. He spat it into the drain and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His palm stank faintly of pennies. He checked his phone again out of habit. No bars. The clock read 2:38 a.m. Still, he flipped to airplane mode. Off, on, nothing. He switched to the camera and snapped a picture of the bulletin board. The preview showed the frame just fine. Thumbtacks, curled edges, the handwritten line. But when he tapped to view it, the image had changed. The flyer was there, but the handwriting wasn't words anymore. It was a shape, a loop, a child's spiral pressed too hard into paper. The radio in the sedan coughed and delivered one sentence too clear to be a mistake. If your watch is moving, don't look at the mirrors. Ethan's head snapped toward the vending machine clocks. 2:38, the wall clock above the water fountain, 2:38. His phone, 2:38. He looked at his own wrist to prove the joke wrong and realized he wasn't wearing a watch. He hadn't worn one in years. Okay, he said to the room, to the fog, to the red LED eye. Okay, I'm leaving. He took 2 steps toward the exit. The automatic doors didn't open. He stood in front of the motion sensor, waved, stepped back and forward again. The doors twitched, thinking about it, then held. He put both hands on the cool glass and let out a breath that fogged the pain. On the other side of his breath print in the reflection, the parking lot extended and extended and extended, as if the angle had shifted. Shapes moved in that false depth, cars he didn't own, people he didn't know. A figure at the very edge of the reflection turned its head, and though it was too far to see clearly, Ethan knew with the certainty of a bad heartbeat that it was looking directly at him. Behind him, the cafe bell rang once, soft as a coin hitting porcelain. The security camera clicked. The clock above the water fountain coughed to 2:39 a.m., and every other clock stayed behind. You said, continue. Ethan leaned into the glass doors and pushed hard this time. They didn't budge. He felt the give of rubber seals, the static of old electricity, and then nothing. His reflection looked warped thinner, stretched, like the glass was tired of copying him. He stepped back, swore under his breath, and kicked the frame. The hollow echo didn't sound like glass. It sounded like distance. He took a deep breath. Emergency exit, he muttered. There's always an emergency exit. He turned down the side hallway where the vending machines ended. A red exit sign glowed at the far end, comforting in its normalcy. He jogged toward it, shoes squeaking on wet tile. The sign grew brighter, the hallway longer. His breathing sounded doubled on a rhythm from his chest, one faintly behind him, half a beat late. He didn't look back. When he reached the end, the door under the exit sign wasn't metal anymore. It was wood, old, painted beige, with a brass knob worn smooth. He froze, knuckles hovering just short of touch. Rest stops didn't have wood doors, not since the 70s. He tried the knob anyway. Cold, locked. He pressed his ear to the surface. Silence at first, then a sound, faint, slow scraping, like someone dragging their nails across the other side. He jerked back, pulse hammering. Hello? The scraping stopped. He exhaled through his nose, fighting the instinct to run. He'd seen too many horror movies. He knew what the dumb thing was, going back to check again, and he was about to do it anyway. He bent slightly, trying to peer through the keyhole. There was no keyhole, just darkness, dense and textured, like velvet. He squinted, and something moved within it, fast and close. He stumbled backward, shoulder hitting the wall. The exit light flickered. When it came back on, the door was gone. Just white tile where it had been. Ethan's throat went dry. No, nope. He turned, walking fast now, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3. He reached the main hall again, but the vending machines weren't where they'd been. The wall was blank. The bulletin board was gone. Only the bathroom signs remained, and now both said men. His hands shook. The air felt thicker, almost wet. He rubbed his palm against his jeans and found condensation on the denim. He tried to orient himself. The cafe should be behind him, the glass doors to his right. But the hallway stretched in both directions now, symmetrical. The tiles under the flickering lights reflected 2 versions of him, one breathing, one not. He muttered to himself, "You're overtired. You fell asleep at the wheel. You're dreaming." A voice interrupted him, low, soft, almost polite. "Sir, we're closed." He spun. A man stood behind the cafe counter, or what was now a cafe again. The metal shutters were open. Light spilled out in weak, golden rectangles. The man wore a rest stop uniform, pale shirt, name tag half faded. His face looked ordinary. His smile didn't. It was fixed, just a fraction too wide. Ethan's heart leapt. "Finally! I thought nobody was here." "The door's jammed. Closed," the man said again. nodding slowly. Maintenance. Right. Yeah, but can I get out? The attendant tilted his head, still smiling. You already did. Ethan frowned. What? The man pointed toward the automatic doors. You came in, sir. You'll leave the same way. They're locked. The attendant's smile didn't waver. They open when it's time. Time for what? The man leaned slightly forward. The fluorescent light above his head flickered once, and in that flash, Ethan thought he saw something moving inside the man's eyes. Not reflection, not life, just movement, like film projected on wet glass. For you, the man said softly. Ethan's stomach turned cold. For me to, what? To finish your stop. I just wanted coffee, Ethan said, voice cracking. Then have some. The attendant reached under the counter and came up holding a white paper cup. Steam drifted from it, thin and gray. He set it on the counter with careful precision. On the house. Ethan stared at it. The smell wasn't coffee. It was sweet, metallic, and faintly like wet pavement after rain. He shook his head. No thanks. The attendant's smile dimmed. You don't refuse what's offered. I'll take my chances. The man nodded once. Slow. Everyone says that. The first time. Ethan took a step back. What does that mean? But the attendant was gone. The counter stood empty. The cup was gone too. The lights flickered violently. Ethan stumbled back into the main hall, or tried to. The hallway wasn't there. The bathroom doors opened directly into fog, thick and rolling like smoke. He turned toward where the glass exit should be, and saw cars. Dozens of them, all parked perfectly, all empty. Their headlights turned on at once, cutting through the fog in silent unison. His chest seized. This isn't real. From behind him, the bell at the cafe counter rang once. Ding. He looked back. The attendant was there again, hands folded neatly. They all say that too, he said quietly, right before the clock resets. Ethan shook his head, voice cracking. No, don't. The lights dimmed. The fog surged forward. The hum of fluorescent bulbs turned into a low electric roar. Every clock in the building blinked to 2:37 a.m. Ethan didn't remember running, only that one moment he was staring at the fog swallowing the hallway, and the next, he was outside again, gasping against the cold. His shoes slapped the wet pavement, echoing across the parking lot. Every car sat perfectly still, headlights off now as if pretending to sleep. His own car waited where he'd left it, door half open. The interior light glowed like a small mercy. He threw himself inside, slammed the door, and jammed the keys into the ignition. The engine hesitated, then turned over with a shaky cough. Dashboard lights came alive. 2:37 a.m. He didn't care. He floored the gas. The tires squealed against wet asphalt, spraying thin mist. The fog ahead parted just enough for his headlights to carve a tunnel through it. He didn't look in the mirrors. He didn't look at the building shrinking behind him. He just drove. The first minute was relief. The second minute was disbelief. The third was dread. The fog didn't end. The road didn't curve. The landscape stayed identical. Same cracked guardrails, same reflector poles flashing by like metronomes. He glanced down at his phone. Still no signal. The GPS map was gray, the arrow floating on a featureless void. Come on, he muttered, tapping the screen. The GPS blinked once, then displayed a road line. Just one, marked Interstate 44 East. His destination dot pulsed faintly on the top edge. He looked back up. The same green rest stop sign appeared ahead, glowing faintly through the fog. Rest area, 1 mile. He slammed the brakes. The car fishtailed, tires screeching. His heart dropped into his stomach. He reversed hard, spun the wheel, tried to turn around. But when he did, the same sign appeared behind him. Identical. The world tilted. No, he whispered. No, I left. He pressed the gas again, speeding past the sign. The fog grew denser, but the road stayed smooth, black, hypnotic. He checked the odometer. Miles ticked forward. He drove for 10-15 minutes. When the fog thinned, his pulse slowed until he saw the glow again. Rest area, 1 mile. He let out a strangled sound, half laugh, half scream. That's impossible. The radio, dead since before, flickered to life. A faint female voice spoke, calm and steady, like a traffic report played underwater. Eastbound lanes remain closed. Please use alternate routes. He shouted, What routes? Static swallowed her voice. He rolled down his window, cold air rushing in. The smell hit him again. Wet pavement, metal, and something faintly sweet. The exact same scent from the Rest Stop Cafe. His stomach turned. In the distance, the faint outline of the building emerged again, glowing behind the fog. Thelot lights flickered. Ethan's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. No, I'm not going back. He drove past the exit. The highway stretched on, or pretended to. The pavement began to change, stripes bending slightly, the yellow line splitting into 2, then 4, like the road was folding in on itself. The steering wheel vibrated under his hands. The engine whined too high, but the speedometer needle stayed still at 45. He hit the brakes. The pedal sank to the floor. The car didn't slow. The fog ahead moved, not drifted, moved, as if pulled aside by something enormous. Beyond it, the same rest stop sign appeared, But this time, the words had changed. Rest area closed for maintenance. Below that, handwritten in black marker, stay in your vehicle. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. No, no, no. He slammed the gear into reverse, but the car didn't react. The headlights dimmed. The radio crackled again, this time whispering in the same male voice from before. The attendant. You shouldn't drive after the shutdown. He slammed his hand against the dashboard. What does that mean? It's for your safety. The fog closed around the car like a living thing. The windows frosted from the edges inward. He could see his breath now. The temperature gauge dropped even though the engine was running. He leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. Shapes moved in the fog, human maybe, walking along the road's shoulder. They looked like shadows at first, but as his headlights brushed over them, he saw faces, blank, gray, reflective like glass. He blinked hard, rubbed his eyes. When he looked again, they were gone. His rearview mirror caught movement, headlights behind him. Relief surged through him for a heartbeat. Thank God! The lights were too high, too close. He realized they weren't headlights. They were reflections of his own. He glanced forward. The road bent suddenly, too sharp to be real. He swerved hard. The tires hit gravel, then nothing. The world tilted sideways. Metal screamed. Glass exploded, then silence. For a moment, there was only his own breathing and the faint pinging of the cooling engine. He coughed, vision swimming. Airbags deflated in slow folds. The car had come to rest at an angle. He turned his head, wincing. The windshield was cracked but intact. Through it, faint light shimmered. It wasn't the moon. It was the rest stop, less than 100 feet away. Ethan laughed. It came out hollow. I never left. He opened the door. Fog spilled in, thick and cold as water. His knees hit pavement as he climbed out. Every bone in his body buzzed with panic and disbelief. He staggered toward the sign, its glow flickering. Up close, he could see more words scratched beneath the printed text, deep gouges in the metal, carved by something sharp. It doesn't shut down. You do. A low hum rolled through the air, mechanical, alive, endless. The rest stop doors slid open. Inside, the clock read 2:37 a.m. The doors slid open with a sound like air escaping a lung. Ethan froze on the threshold, rainwater dripping from his sleeves, the cold settling into his bones. The light inside was softer now, almost golden, like early morning sunlight filtered through dust. For a heartbeat, he thought he was free. Maybe dawn had finally come. Then he saw them. People, at least a dozen of them, scattered through the rest stop lobby, a family near the vending machines. A man in a suit at the coffee counter, a teenage girl holding a phone midair. Their eyes open, their mouths slightly parted, not moving, not blinking. Ethan's stomach turned. Hello? The word died in the air. No one answered. He stepped closer, shoes squeaking on the wet tile. The air felt heavy, charged with something that wasn't heat or cold, but expectation. He walked up to the man in the suit first. The guy's hand was half raised, holding a crumpled napkin. The other hand hovered over his coffee cup, frozen mid-stir. Ethan reached out, touched the man's sleeve solid, warm, but the fabric didn't yield. It was stiff like wax. Ethan stumbled back. The family near the vending machine, mother, father, 2 kids, looked the same. The youngest girl's eyes were fixed on the candy rack, a single tear frozen halfway down her cheek like glass. The father's hand rested on her shoulder, but even that small contact looked posed, as if someone had sculpted it from memory. Ethan whispered, "Oh God." He backed away, tripping over his own shoes, bumping into a cart stacked with plastic cups. They didn't fall. They didn't even shake. His voice cracked. "What is this?" From the corner of the room, something answered. Not a voice. A sound, soft, rhythmic, mechanical. Tick, tick, tick. He turned toward the vending machines. The second one, the one with the milk bottles, was moving. Each glass bottle shivered faintly in place, the condensation running upward instead of down. He squinted, horrified, as the foil caps bulged from the inside, one by one, like something was breathing under them. Then pop, pop, pop. The caps burst quietly, and a faint mist rose from each bottle. It smelled faintly sweet, faintly wrong, the same wet metal scent that had followed him since the crash. The mist didn't drift randomly. It coiled, deliberate, like it was looking. Ethan backed away, heart hammering, gaze darting to the doors still open, but beyond them was just white fog, thick and blinding. No night sky. "No highway," he called out again, louder this time. "Hey, can anyone hear me?" Somewhere deeper inside the building, a door creaked, the bathroom door. It swung open slowly, like someone had nudged it from the other side. Light spilled out, not white, but blue, cold underwater blue. Ethan's skin prickled. He took one slow step forward, then another, his breath catching at every sound his shoes made. As he got closer, he heard something faint, like a whisper caught in running water. He pushed the door open. The bathroom looked the same mirrors, same stuttering lights, except now, the mirrors weren't reflecting him. They were reflecting the frozen people outside, standing exactly where they'd been, but each reflection slightly turned as if their heads were angled toward the bathroom door, watching. He stumbled back, eyes wide. "No, no, no, no." The whispering grew louder, words now, though muffled. He leaned closer, squinting at the mirror. The voices overlapped, hundreds of them. maybe thousands, whispering the same word in different tones. Stay. Ethan grabbed the edge of the sink, knuckles white. His reflection flickered, returning for half a second, and behind it, another face appeared. The attendant. Ethan turned sharply. No one there. He looked back. The reflection was gone. The mirror fogged again, then cleared, revealing words written backward in condensation. Finish your stop. Ethan stumbled backward, slammed into the paper towel dispenser, and bolted out of the bathroom. The frozen people hadn't moved, but something else had. The fog inside the building had thickened, curling around their feet, weaving between them like threads connecting each body. He ran for the doors. They slid shut before he reached them. He slammed into the glass, palms flat, screaming, "Open!" The fog outside swirled, and for a moment he saw the highway again, his car still sitting wrecked at the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. Through the fogged glass of his car's window, he could see something moving inside a figure in the driver's seat, head turned toward him. It was him. He staggered back, his breath hitched. That's not. The figure inside the car raised a hand and waved once. Slow, mocking. The vending machine ticked again behind him. Tick, tick, tick. The mist from the bottles had reached the ceiling now, circling the light fixtures, casting faint moving shadows that looked like dozens of hands reaching down. Ethan backed away until his shoulders hit the counter. He reached out, fumbled for something. Anything his hand landed, on the bell cord. He yanked it. The bell chimed. Once, the attendant's voice came from right behind him, calm, close. "Now you're staying." Ethan spun, but the cafe was empty. The clock above the counter clicked. 2:37 a.m. For a long moment, Ethan couldn't move. Every hair on his arm stood on end. His lungs stuttered between breaths, and his eyes darted across the lobby, across all those unmoving faces. They weren't statues, not anymore. He could see tiny details now that the fog had crept up to their waists. The slow shimmer of moisture on their skin, the faint rise of a chest that stopped halfway through an inhale, lips that twitched every few seconds like they were trying to finish a word. They weren't gone. They were paused. He whispered, "They're breathing." As if the word itself woke something, the hum in the walls deepened low and electrical, vibrating through the floor and into his shoes. The ceiling lights flickered once, twice, and then steadied into an unnatural calm, the kind of silence that doesn't exist until sound has been removed. Ethan turned toward the man in the suit again. The napkin in his hand, the one frozen mid-stir, was gone. The coffee cup was empty, but steam curled out of it now, slow and ghost-like. He took a step back, bumping into one of the kids from the frozen family. The girl's tear, Theon suspended halfway down her cheek, moved. Just a fraction, but enough. He staggered away. Then he saw it, on the glass wall near the vending machines. Faint reflections, not of the people themselves, but of what they used to be, like a double exposure on film. In the reflection, every frozen figure was moving slightly. The father smiled. The teenage girl scrolled her phone. The man in the suit looked bored, tapping his cup. They were alive in the reflection. Ethan's breath hitched. No. He stepped closer to the glass, watching the reflected world with his own trembling hand raised to match it. In the reflection, the people were normal, talking, laughing, alive, but the space behind them wasn't the same rest stop. It was brighter, cleaner, no fog, no rot. He stared at himself in the glass, half hoping his reflection would look the same, just a tired traveler passing through. But what looked back wasn't him. It was a version of him that looked older, gray under the eyes, jaw tight, clothes dry and clean. The reflection smiled faintly and lifted a coffee cup, toasting him. Ethan whispered, "What are you?" The reflection tilted its head and mouthed something he couldn't hear. Then the glass rippled. He jerked back as the reflection's hand pressed against the other side, palm matching his perfectly. The glass didn't feel cold anymore. It was warm, alive. The frozen people behind him began to shift, slowly, subtly, heads turning one by one toward him, eyes refocusing. The sound of cracking joints echoed through the room like distant gunshots. He spun in a circle. "Stay back!" But none of them moved forward. They just stared, expressionless, waiting. The man in the suit's jaw twitched. The teenage girl's phone slipped from her fingers and hit the floor without sound. The mother blinked once, then froze again, mid-blink. Ethan's brain screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. The air was thick now, syrupy. The fog reached chest height. Every breath tasted of copper. He stumbled back toward the counter, fumbling for something, anything, to use as a weapon. His hand brushed the bell cord again. He froze. The attendant's voice came, faint but near, like someone whispering directly into his ear. They stopped because they looked too long. Ethan spun, eyes wide. Looked at what? At the exit. He turned toward the automatic doors again. The glass was darker now, no longer showing the outside lot. Instead, it showed the same lobby, an exact mirror, only empty. No frozen people, no fog, just the faint hum of lights. It was beautiful, peaceful. For one terrifying second, he wanted to step into it. He took a half step forward, The frozen people's eyes snapped toward him in unison. The attendant's voice hissed again. Sharp now. Don't finish your stop too soon. Ethan stumbled back, shaking. Why are you doing this to me? No answer. Only the ticking from the vending machines again. Each one perfectly timed, each tick louder than the last. He turned back to the reflection. His double was closer now, standing only inches away from the glass. Its smile was gone. Its eyes were dark. Ethan whispered, "You're not me." The reflection tilted its head. I was. Ethan's body went cold. What? The voice didn't come from the reflection. It came from behind him. He spun, and there he was, the attendant, standing right beside the frozen family, his eyes calm, smile softer now, almost kind. Ethan's voice cracked. What do you want? The man stepped closer. I told you, sir. We're closed. I don't care. I'm leaving. You already did, the man said gently, echoing himself from before. You've been leaving for a long time. Ethan's throat went dry. What does that mean? The attendant gestured toward the reflection, toward the Ethan behind the glass. That's the own who left. You're the one who stopped. Ethan shook his head violently. No, that's not. The attendant stepped closer, his voice lowering to a whisper. How long were you driving before you stopped here? Ethan hesitated. I don't know. 8 hours? Maybe 9. Maybe longer, the man said. Maybe long enough. Ethan took another step back, horror dawning. No, you never left the road, the man said softly. You never even made it here. The rest stop came to you. Ethan's heartbeat crashed in his ears. His mind tried to catch up. You're lying. The man smiled again. Then drive. Try again. Ethan sprinted toward the doors, slamming his palms against the glass. Outside, the highway appeared again. Fog, asphalt, distance. His wrecked car still smoking faintly. Inside the reflection of the glass, his double smiled and lifted the car keys. Then every frozen person in the room whispered together. One sound, one breath, in perfect unison. Welcome to your stop. Ethan's hands shook against the glass doors. His breath fogged the surface and vanished just as fast. Beyond the reflection, the world looked almost normal, fog thinning, highway lights visible again. He could see his car in the distance, hazard lights blinking steady like a heartbeat. He just had to move. He had to step through. He backed up, counted under his breath, and then ran full speed. The impact should have shattered glass instead. The surface bent like stretched water. His body sank halfway through before it snapped him back, slamming him to the floor. His lungs emptied with a dry wheeze. He coughed, eyes watering, tasting metal in the air. The attendant didn't move. The frozen people didn't blink. Everything in the room seemed to pulse faintly with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. He stared at the glass again. The reflection world on the other side looked brighter now, sharper, like daylight bleeding through cracks in a wall. His reflection, or whatever it was, stared down at him from the other side. It tilted its head. Then it raised a hand and began tracing something on the inside of the glass letters, written backward but slow enough for Ethan to read them. You're late. Ethan scrambled to his feet, shouting, Let me out. The reflection smiled faintly, leaned forward, and pressed both palms against the surface. A faint vibration buzzed through the floor tiles. The air rippled. The fog began to pull backward toward the glass, like a tide returning to the sea. And as it did, Ethan saw something beneath the fog. Feet, dozens of them. Bare, still colorless. The people in the room weren't standing on the floor anymore. Their feet ended just above it, suspended like puppets an inch from the ground. The fog beneath them swirled into thin strands, connecting each of them to the glass wall as if it were feeding them. Ethan gagged. What the hell are you? The attendant's voice came from behind him, not angry, just patient. They're travelers, same as you. Everyone stops eventually. Ethan turned, shouting, Stop saying that. I didn't stop. I crashed. The man's smile didn't change. You think crashing isn't stopping? Ethan's heart dropped. The lights above flickered again once, twice, and then the sound of glass cracking filled the air. Hairline fractures spread across every reflective surface in the building. The vending machines, the mirrors, the coffee pot steel all spiderwebbing outward until it looked like the entire rest stop was made of broken mirrors. Behind every crack, another version of Ethan appeared. Dozens of them, hundreds, each one standing still, faces calm, eyes hollow. Some were older, some younger, all wearing the same fear he felt now. He staggered back, hands clutching his head. This isn't real! His reflection in the door laughed a quiet, dry sound, like wind moving through a tunnel. You always say that, Ethan screamed, slamming his fist against the glass. The sound echoed forever. For a moment, every reflection screamed back at once. The whole world vibrated. Then the glass under his hand softened. He looked down, his palm was sinking in. He pulled back, but the glass clung to him like honey, dragging his skin forward. He yanked harder, panic rising. but it pulled tighter, up to his wrist, then his forearm. His reflection's hand gripped his from the inside, nails digging into his skin. Ethan shouted, "Let go!" The attendant didn't move. He just watched, head tilted, expression calm. The glass swallowed Ethan's elbow. His other hand clawed at the door frame, nails scraping metal. His reflection smiled that same small, understanding smile and whispered through the barrier, "Finish your stop." The fog rushed toward the glass, pulling everything with it, the air, the lights, the sound. The frozen people turned in perfect synchronization, all facing him now, their eyes bright and glassy. For the first time, they all spoke together, their voices layered in perfect echo. "You've been driving too long." The words hit like a wave, vibrating the air around him. The glass began to liquefy, swallowing his chest, his neck. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, sinking with the low hum that filled the building. He gasped, I'm not dead." The attendant's voice came gently from behind him, so close it felt like a whisper against his shoulder. "No, just tired." Ethan's vision blurred. His reflection leaned forward, forehead pressing against his from the other side of the glass. The world flickered bright, then dark, then bright again like someone changing channels. For a brief second, he saw the highway from above, hundreds of miles of empty road and dozens of tiny glowing rest stops dotting the fog, like fireflies trapped in a jar. Each one pulsed faintly at the same rhythm. Then he was inside. He blinked and the air felt lighter. The light was warm, the fog gone. The frozen people were gone too. The rest stop looked clean again, fresh like morning. A radio hummed softly from somewhere. He looked down. His hands were clean. His clothes were dry. A coffee cup sat in front of him on the counter, steam rising. He exhaled shakily. "It's over?" The attendant stood behind the register, smiling pleasantly. "Heading east or west?" Ethan blinked. "What?" "Highway direction," the man said, voice calm. People forget where they were going sometimes. Ethan looked toward the glass doors. Outside, sunlight poured over the parking lot. Cars were parked neatly. Travelers walked between them. The air looked alive. He smiled faintly, dizzy with relief. "East, I think." The man nodded. "Good. Then when you leave, stay awake." Ethan frowned. "I will." The man leaned closer, smiling wider now. Too wide. "You didn't last time." The world flickered again, sunlight gone, fog returning, the lobby empty. Ethan stood alone, his coffee cold. The clock on the wall clicked softly, 2:37 a.m., and from the reflection in the glass, a voice whispered quiet, almost kind, "Your stop isn't over yet." The light was soft when Ethan opened his eyes again, not the humming fluorescent kind, but warm daylight spilling across polished tiles. For a few seconds he didn't breathe. He just lay there listening. There was no static, no hum, no ticking, only silence, real clean silence. He sat up slowly. His chair creaked. The air smelled of coffee and lemon cleaner. The rest stop looked brand new, every surface spotless, every vending machine fully stocked, their glass shining like mirrors. Through the wide windows, sunlight poured across a bright parking lot filled with cars that gleamed like showroom models. A mother guided her kids toward the restrooms, laughing softly. Two truckers stood by the coffee stand, chatting about weather and miles left. A man in a blue jacket washed his hands at the fountain. Normal life. Ethan pressed a hand to his chest, felt his heartbeat steady, warm. "I made it," he whispered. "I'm out." He stood, legs trembling, and walked toward the glass doors. They slid open immediately this time, a perfect mechanical sound. Outside, the air was crisp and dry, the sky a clean blue stretching forever. His car sat in the same place as before, only polished, new, like it had just been detailed. The cracked windshield was perfect again. The paint shone. The engine idled softly, ready. He took a deep breath of relief. It tasted different, lighter, sweeter, too sweet, like canned air. He ignored it. He climbed into the driver's seat, ran his fingers over the steering wheel. It was warm, like someone had just been driving it. He smiled. "Who cares?" he said softly and started to drive. The highway stretched ahead, lined with green trees and golden fields. The fog was gone. For the first time in hours or maybe days, he felt peace. He drove for 10 minutes before realizing the radio was on. A soft jazz tune played, faint but pleasant. He chuckled, shaking his head. Sure, why not? He kept driving. 5 more minutes passed before he realized something strange. The same red pickup truck had been in his side mirror the entire time, perfect distance. Never closer, never farther. The same car in front of him, too, a silver sedan with a broken taillight. The same flicker, over and over. He frowned. Weird coincidence. The radio clicked softly, a tiny static pop between the saxophone notes. "Good morning, travelers," a cheerful voice said. "You're listening to Highway FM, current time 2:37 a.m. Ethan's hand froze on the steering wheel. "No," the voice continued, bright and hollow. "Remember, stay alert, stay rested, and don't stop unless you need to." He slammed the radio off. The music stopped. But when he looked up, the sun hadn't moved. Same angle, same light. The shadows under the trees were identical. He pulled to the side of the road. The cars behind him didn't slow. They passed smoothly, same pickup, same sedan, same white van, each moving like they were on a track, eyes forward, faces blank. He stepped out of the car. The air was silent again. No wind, no bugs, no birds. Just that faint hum like the sound of power lines buried deep underground. He shouted, "Hey, can anyone hear me?" No one even turned their heads. He walked toward the nearest car, the silver sedan. Through the driver's window, he saw a woman gripping the wheel, staring straight ahead. Her mouth moved, repeating a single phrase, lips trembling. He tapped on the glass. "Ma'am?" No reaction. He leaned closer. Her voice was faint through the glass. "Almost there. Almost there. Almost there." Ethan backed away, chest tightening. He turned toward the pickup truck. The man inside had his hand frozen halfway to the gear shift, eyes open but unfocused. The same faint smile on his face as the attendant had worn. Ethan ran his hand through his hair, heart pounding. This isn't real. This isn't. Then, from far down the road, he saw the rest stop sign again. Rest area 1 mile. His stomach dropped. He turned around and the same sign stood behind him, identical. He screamed, kicked the gravel, slammed his fists against the hood of his car. The metal didn't dent. It didn't even vibrate. The world was solid but dead. The attendant's voice drifted softly on the wind. Calm, patient. "You're resting now, sir. Just like everyone else." Ethan spun around, scanning the road. No one there. Only long shadows, stretching too far for the light that made them. He shouted, "I don't belong here." The air shimmered, the asphalt under his feet rippling like heat waves. The trees flickered green to gray to green again. The cars vanished for half a second and then returned, all perfectly aligned. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. "Wake up!" The voice came again, closer this time, from behind him. "Why would you want to?" He turned slowly. The attendant stood on the center line, his uniform spotless, his smile kind. "Out there it's all motion," he said softly. "Here, you never have to drive again." Ethan shook his head violently. "This isn't peace." "This is nothing!" The attendant's smile widened. "Exactly." The world flickered again. For an instant, Ethan saw the truth. The bright rest stopped fading like a projection, revealing the old fog-filled version beneath. The people in the parking lot were frozen again. Their cars were covered in dust. He blinked and the daylight returned, blinding. The illusion snapped back into place. He fell against the side of his car, gasping. His reflection in the window smiled at him, lips moving without sound. He whispered, "Please, just let me go." His reflection leaned closer, mouthing the same words backward. The radio turned itself on. "You've reached your destination," the voice said cheerfully. "Rest well." The sun froze in the sky, and everything went perfectly, impossibly still. Ethan stood in the middle of the road, sun frozen at the same angle it had been for what felt like hours. The world looked perfect, but only if you didn't stare too long. Every color was too sharp, every shadow too straight. There was no wind, yet the grass beside the highway swayed slightly out of sync, like playback on a loop. He turned slowly, eyes darting between the horizon lines. They shimmered faintly, like two mirrors facing each other, endless, but hollow. He muttered to himself, "It's not real. It's not real." He climbed back into his car, slammed the door, and turned the ignition. The engine hummed too quiet, too smooth. The dashboard clock still read 2:37 a.m., even though sunlight poured across the windshield. He hit the gas anyway, tires squealing on asphalt that didn't even scuff. He drove until the odometer rolled over once, then twice. The same scenery repeated like a film reel stuttering. Same overpass, same exit sign, same billboard half hidden by trees. When he looked closer, the billboard wasn't advertising a gas station anymore. It was advertising the rest stop. "Exit now, refresh, reset, rest." His throat tightened. The word reset flickered faintly before correcting itself. He slammed the brakes. "You're lying to me." He yelled at nothing. The radio crackled. "Don't raise your voice, sir," the attendant's calm voice replied. "You'll disturb the others." Ethan's jaw locked. The others? The ones still sleeping. He turned the volume down, but the voice didn't stop. It was coming from everywhere now. The air vents, the dashboard, even his own reflection in the rearview mirror, lips moving perfectly in sync with the sound. He ripped the rearview mirror off the windshield and hurled it out the window. It hit the pavement and didn't bounce. It just sank like it fell into water instead of road. He stepped out of the car, breathing hard. The sound of static buzzed faintly in the distance, rhythmic, like it came from beneath the ground. He followed it across the shoulder, down the grassy embankment, to a small concrete drainage tunnel hidden under the road. Inside, the static grew louder. He crouched, flashlight from his phone flickering across wet walls. Strange symbols covered the concrete circles. Arrows. The number 237 repeated in black marker. The tunnel air shimmered faintly, vibrating. He whispered, "Where are you?" A voice, deeper this time, echoed back, not the attendant's. "You never left." The flashlight flickered. Ethan's phone screen glowed bright for a split second, displaying a new message he hadn't opened. "Finish your stop." He dropped the phone. The static pitched higher, like feedback from a speaker. He covered his ears, stumbled backward, fell into the grass. The The sky above him shimmered again, sunlight flickering between night and day in alternating bursts, a strobe of two realities fighting for space. The road above him dissolved for a heartbeat replaced by the cracked ceiling of the original foggy rest stop. He could see it, faint and ghost-like, hovering above. The frozen people still stood there waiting, outlines like dust trapped in glass. He shouted, "I can see you! I can see what you're doing." No one moved. But the attendant's voice carried down from nowhere, soft and level. "Then you already know. Every stop needs its keeper." Ethan froze. "What?" "It shuts down overnight," the voice said. "Someone has to open it again." He shook his head violently. "Not me. I'm not staying here." The voice chuckled, a low, hollow sound that rattled through the tunnel walls. "You already are." Ethan stumbled toward his car, hands trembling. He climbed in, slammed the door, pressed his forehead to the steering wheel. "Wake up, just wake up." He closed his eyes. The hum in the air changed pitch. When he opened them, the windshield was gone. In its place, the glass wall of the rest stop lobby. He was sitting on the same floor he'd run from, fog swirling around his knees. The attendant stood across the room again, calm as ever, straightening a stack of brochures on the counter. "Rough drive?" he asked. Ethan's voice broke. "Please let me out." The man's smile didn't falter. "You've been out. You didn't like it." Ethan stood shakily. "This isn't real." "None of it." The man tilted his head. "Does it matter?" He reached under the counter, took out a fresh paper cup, and placed it down gently. Steam curled from the rim, faintly metallic, faintly sweet. "Coffee?" Ethan's hands shook. "Stop saying that." The man sighed softly, almost sadly. "Then finish your stop." Ethan grabbed the cup and hurled it against the wall. It shattered into steam instead of shards. The air rippled. Every light in the building flickered in sync with his heartbeat, too fast, too loud. The world shuddered. For a moment, Ethan saw the seams, the repeating patterns of tile, the flickering frames of frozen people, the way the fog looped like a video. Reality wasn't solid, it was coded. He stepped closer to the attendant. "You're part of it. You're not real either." The man smiled faintly. "You make me real every time you stop." Ethan's chest heaved. "Then what happens if I don't?" The attendant leaned forward, voice low. "You'll drive forever." Ethan's eyes widened. "Good." He turned toward the glass doors and ran. This time, when his hands hit the surface, it didn't resist. It shattered. Light poured through, cold and blinding, tearing the fog apart. He stumbled forward, through it, into air that felt real again, sharp, icy, alive. He landed on asphalt. The world around him was dark once more. A wrecked car smoldered on the shoulder, its headlights dimming. The smell of gasoline filled his nose. He crawled forward, gasping. "I'm out," he whispered. "I made it." Behind him, the fog rose from the ground like a wall. Inside it, faint yellow lights flickered, the rest stop, rebuilding itself. And from deep within the fog, the attendant's voice echoed softly, fading with each word. "It'll open again." "They always do." Ethan's vision blurred. He turned toward the highway, endless, empty, silent. The wind blew across the asphalt, carrying the faintest whisper, 2:37 a.m., and then silence. The sky was pale gray when Ethan finally stood again. His hands were scraped, his jeans torn, but he was breathing. Cold air filled his lungs, sharp and heavy. The wrecked car beside him hissed softly, engine cooling in slow, uneven clicks. He stared at the smoke curling up from the hood and laughed a dry, broken sound that startled even him. "I made it out," he whispered. "I made it." He looked around. The highway stretched both ways, infinite and empty. No cars, no sound. Just the faint whistle of wind moving through the trees. The fog had retreated to the edges of the woods, curling and folding like it was waiting for permission to come back. He started walking. His legs hurt, but movement felt like proof of life. The asphalt was rough beneath his shoes, real. He could smell it, tar, oil, dust. Real things. Every few minutes, he glanced behind him, half expecting to see the rest stop rise again from the fog. But it didn't. It stayed gone. He walked for what felt like hours before he saw another sign, weathered green metal, leaning slightly to one side. "Exit 237, rest area 1 mile. He froze. "No," he said softly. That's not possible." He turned around. The road behind him was empty. No other exits. No landmarks. Just the same smooth stretch of highway disappearing into fog. He walked faster now, heart hammering, every step echoing too loud. The fog at the horizon thickened, then thinned again, like it was breathing. After 20 minutes, another sign appeared. "Exit 237, rest area 1 mile. He started laughing again, quietly at first, then louder until it turned into a choking cough. "Okay," he said, voice hoarse. "You win. Fine." He kept walking. As he moved, he noticed strange things, small things at first. The mile markers were all the same number. The same crow perched on every power line, head tilted in the same direction. The same piece of paper, a gas receipt, tumbled past his feet again and again, as if the wind had memorized its path. He reached for his phone, desperate to call anyone, but when he pressed the power button, it didn't light up. Instead, it buzzed once, and a single word appeared on the screen before fading out. "Welcome." He dropped it, breathing hard. No. The fog ahead split apart, and there it was, the rest stop. Exactly as it had been before, the same flickering sign, the same shape of the building against the horizon, only now it looked newer, polished, clean, open for business. A single yellow light glowed above the door. He stopped walking. His throat tightened. "You're gone," he whispered. "I watched you collapse." The wind carried a faint sound, a hum, low, familiar, like electricity behind a wall. Then a voice, soft and polite, drifting just far enough to sound unreal. "Sir, you dropped your keys." Ethan turned. The attendant stood a few feet behind him, holding a set of car keys. His expression was neutral, almost kind. "You'll need these," he said. Ethan stumbled back, shaking his head. "No, you can't. I broke it. I broke all of it." The man smiled faintly. "You fixed it." Ethan blinked. "What?" The man held out the keys. "Every stop needs its keeper. Someone to watch the road, make sure the next traveler knows where to rest." Ethan backed away. I can't." But the man's form was already fading, his voice thinning into the wind. "You already are." Ethan looked down. The keys were in his hand now. The tag read, Attendant 237. He dropped them instantly, but they didn't hit the ground. They hung in the air for a moment, suspended, then vanished. He turned back toward the road. The horizon shimmered faintly. Cars appeared again, small, distant lights. For the first time, he heard engines, tires, motion. He stumbled forward, waving both arms. "Hey, stop! Stop!" But the cars didn't slow. They passed through him like mist, continuing down the highway as if he wasn't there. He looked at his hands. They were pale, glowing faintly under the dawn light, not ghostly, not solid, reflected. His voice cracked. "No, please." The hum behind him deepened. The fog rolled in again, soft and patient, wrapping around the highway. From somewhere deep inside it, a bell chimed. He turned slowly. The rest stoplights flickered to life one by one, the sign glowing bright and clear. Rest area open. Through the glass doors, Ethan could see movement travelers walking inside, yawning, stretching, buying coffee. He took a slow, shuddering breath and walked toward it. The automatic doors opened with a gentle chime. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and lemon cleaner. The vending machines gleamed. The clock above the counter ticked once. 2:37 a.m. Ethan smiled faintly, a tear slipping down his cheek. "Guess it's my shift." He walked behind the counter, straightened the stack of brochures, and waited. Outside, a car pulled in headlights, cutting through the fog. The door opened, and a tired man stepped out, rubbing his eyes, stretching his arms. He walked toward the entrance, unaware, just another traveler needing a break. Ethan watched him approach, calm, collected, his smile quiet and practiced. When the man reached the counter, Ethan said softly, "Long drive?" The traveler nodded. "Yeah, feels like it never ends." Ethan smiled. "It doesn't. Coffee?" It was just after midnight when the next traveler pulled off the highway. A long-haul trucker, eyes red from hours of staring into rain and headlights, shoulders aching from too many miles. He saw the green sign flash by, Exit 237, Rest Area 1 mile, and sighed out loud, a tired kind of relief. "Finally," he muttered, tapping the steering wheel as he took the exit ramp. The road wound down through mist that clung to the pavement like spilled smoke. The rest stop appeared at the bottom of the hill, glowing faintly through fog, quiet, inviting, just enough light to make him feel safe. He parked, shut off the engine, and sat for a second listening. The hum of the truck died. The world outside was completely still. Even the rain had stopped. He rubbed his eyes and stepped out. The air smelled faintly of coffee, lemon cleaner, and something else he couldn't name, metallic, like hot wires cooling. He figured it was just the generators. The glass doors slid open as he approached. Warm air brushed over his face. Inside, the place was spotless, too spotless. Every tile gleamed, every vending machine perfectly stocked, every coffee cup arranged in neat little rows. The clock above the counter read 2:37 a.m. He frowned. "Broken clock," he muttered, shaking his head. A voice from behind the counter answered, calm and friendly. "Yeah, it's been stuck for a while." The trucker looked up. The attendant stood there, tall, clean uniform, hair neat, eyes calm. There was something familiar about his face, though the trucker couldn't say why. The man smiled. "Long night?" The trucker chuckled. "You could say that." "Left Denver this morning. Wasn't supposed to go this far." The attendant nodded slowly, wiping down the counter with a cloth. "Most of us don't mean to." The trucker laughed. "Ain't that the truth?" The attendant turned, filling a paper cup with steaming coffee. "Cream or sugar?" "Black's fine," the trucker said, stretching his back. "Smells good in here. Like new paint or something." The attendant smiled again, eyes distant for half a second. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We just reopened." The trucker looked around. "Well, you're doing a hell of a job keeping it clean." "Thank you," the man said. "It stays that way." He handed over the cup. The trucker nodded, took a sip, then froze. The coffee was hot, smooth, but there was something off about it. The flavor sat heavy in his mouth, metallic, like the air outside. He swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Good stuff," he said, wiping his lip with his thumb. The attendant's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You'll get used to it." The trucker frowned. "Used to it?" The man blinked once as if he hadn't heard the question. "How long have you been driving?" "Since morning," the trucker said. "Feels like days, though." You ever get that? Lose track of time? The attendant's eyes flickered, like he was thinking of something far away. Sometimes, he said softly. Sometimes it never comes back. The trucker laughed awkwardly. Well, I just need a few minutes to wake up. I'll be gone before you close. The attendant tilted his head. We don't close. The trucker nodded absently, sipping again. Lucky for me. He glanced toward the vending machines. Mind if I grab a snack? Go ahead, the attendant said, already straightening the same stack of brochures. As the trucker walked away, his boots echoed just slightly too loud. The air hummed faintly, like a power line buried under the floor. He turned once, halfway to the vending machine, and caught his reflection in the glass, and behind him, for just a second, he thought he saw two attendants standing at the counter instead of one. He blinked. Just one now. He shook his head, chuckling to himself. Gotta sleep, he muttered. He bought a candy bar, turned back toward the counter, and stopped. The attendant was looking straight at him, not smiling now, just watching, eyes unblinking, posture perfect. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the air vents. Then, suddenly, the attendant's expression softened again, and he smiled. Safe travels, he said. The trucker nodded. Yeah, thanks. He turned, pushing through the glass doors back into the night. The air outside was colder now, thicker. The fog had crept closer to the parking lot, swallowing the edges of the lights. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, and looked at the dashboard clock. 2:37 a.m. He frowned. Didn't I? He shook his head. Clock's busted too, I guess. He pulled out of the lot, headlights slicing through the fog. In his side mirror, he caught one last glimpse of the rest stop. The lights inside flickered once, briefly, and for just a moment, he thought he saw someone else standing beside the attendant, a shape made of fog, same build, same smile. Then it was gone. The highway stretched ahead, endless and empty. He turned on the radio. Good morning, travelers, a calm voice said. You're listening to Highway FM, current time 2:37 a.m. The trucker exhaled, gripping the wheel tighter. Guess it's gonna be a long night. Back at the rest stop, the attendant watched the taillights fade into the fog. He reached up, straightened the clock's hands, and whispered softly not to anyone, but to the air itself. See you soon. The lights flickered, and the sign outside glowed faintly through the mist. Rest area open. Hours passed, or maybe none did. Time had stopped meaning anything inside exit 237. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching the fog shift beyond the glass doors. Every so often, headlights would appear in the distance, pause, then vanish. Sometimes the travelers came inside. Sometimes they didn't. But he always knew when they were close the air would change. The hum would rise, and that faint electric taste would return to the back of his throat. He adjusted the coffee machine again. The steam hissed softly, curling into patterns that always looked like words before fading. The clock above him ticked once, always once before resetting to 2:37 a.m. He didn't mind the repetition anymore. It was quieter this way, predictable. He poured himself a cup and took a sip. It was too hot, but he didn't flinch. The taste was strange now, no bitterness, no sweetness, just warmth, the kind that spread slowly through his chest like it belonged there. He turned toward the vending machines. Every reflection inside them showed him at a slightly different angle, a slightly different version of himself. Some were smiling, some were tired, one even looked scared, but none of them were blinking. He stared until his vision blurred. Which one am I? He whispered. None of them answered. From behind him, a faint voice spoke, polite even. Sir, coffee refill? He turned. Another attendant stood there, identical uniform, same posture, same faint smile. Ethan blinked. Who are you? The man smiled wider. The next one. Ethan felt something inside him twist. Next what? You've been here long enough. Ethan laughed weakly. No, this is my stop. My job. The man tilted his head. You said that too. Ethan took a step back, heartbeat quickening. The fog outside pressed closer to the glass, glowing faintly. I don't understand. The other attendant looked past him toward the clock. You will. Then he walked to the counter beside Ethan, mirroring his movements exactly, wiping the same spot, straightening the same brochures, adjusting the same stack of cups. Ethan watched in silence. After a minute, the man spoke again, still looking down. You ever wonder why it's always 2:37? Ethan frowned. It's just the time. No, the man said softly. It's the minute before it shuts down. Ethan froze. What shuts down? The man finally looked up, and Ethan realized he wasn't seeing another man at all. He was looking at his own reflection, clearer than ever, standing outside the counter as if the glass had turned to a mirror again. He stumbled backward, hitting the coffee machine. Steam hissed violently. The reflection stepped forward, lips moving perfectly in sync with his butt. The voice didn't come from him anymore. It came from the reflection. You finished your stop. Ethan's breath caught. Then why am I still here? Because someone has to wait for the next one. He turned sharply toward the door. The fog outside rippled. Headlights approached again, another traveler. His throat tightened. No more. He ran toward the glass doors, but they didn't open. His reflection was already standing on the other side, smiling, palm pressed to the surface. Ethan whispered, "Let me out." The reflection's lips moved, and the words came softly through the glass. You're out. He slammed his fist against the glass. I'm not you. The reflection leaned closer. You weren't. And then, with a low mechanical hum, the doors slid open. Fog poured inside, swallowing the counter, the machines, the walls. Ethan stumbled backward, coughing. The air turned thick, the lights flickering faster. He heard footsteps heavy, deliberate, the new traveler entering. Through the haze, he saw the silhouette of a man, head bowed, hands in his pockets. The figure stopped just inside the doorway. Ethan tried to speak, but no sound came out. The fog clung to his face like wet cloth. The figure looked up and smiled. It was him, the new Ethan. The air went still. And then everything reset. The fog cleared. The lights steadied. The coffee machine hummed softly again. Ethan stood behind the counter, uniform pressed, expression calm. The clock above him ticked once. 2:37 a.m. Outside, the highway hummed faintly, miles of road stretching forever. Inside, the door chime rang gently. A traveler stepped in, eyes tired, voice soft. Hey, you open? Ethan smiled. Always. The fog rolled against the windows, and the lights flickered once more, perfectly in rhythm. That night, Ethan couldn't tell whether it was still the same night or another one pretending to be. Every sound in the rest stop carried too long the hum of the vending machine, the drip of the coffee pot, the soft electric buzz behind the walls. It all blended into one constant tone, the kind you stop hearing until it stops. And then you realize how loud silence really is. He sat behind the counter, staring at the glass doors. The fog pressed gently against them like it was alive, breathing in sync with the hum. He could see faint shapes moving outside headlights, silhouettes, sometimes even faces, though none ever came inside. Sometimes they stopped right at the entrance, stood there for a few seconds, and then faded back into the mist as if they'd been erased. He found himself talking to the reflection again. Maybe this is what forever feels like, he said softly. The reflection mouthed the words with him, perfectly timed. He thought of his apartment, the small couch, the cracked bathroom mirror, the neighbor who played piano at midnight. Were those memories or just leftovers from someone else's life? Every time he tried to remember, the images blurred like frost melting on glass. The bell above the door chimed suddenly. He looked up, startled. A man in a delivery uniform stood there, soaked from the rain, holding a cardboard box. Evening, the man said, voice casual, eyes hollow. Got a drop-off for 2:37. Ethan blinked. We don't take deliveries. The man shrugged. Always have. Always will. He placed the box on the counter and walked out without another word. Ethan stared at the box. The tape was old, curling at the edges. On the top, in black marker, someone had written, "Open at dawn." He hesitated. The clock above him still read 2:37 a.m. He whispered, "Dawn never comes here." The lights flickered once. He tried to ignore it, but the box started making a sound, not a loud one, just a faint, steady tapping, like someone knocking softly from inside. He moved closer, breath uneven. "Hello?" he whispered, as if expecting someone to answer. The tapping stopped instantly. He reached out. The tape was dry and brittle. As he peeled it back, the paper tore like skin. The top flaps opened with a sigh, and cold air rushed out, colder than the rest of the room. Inside wasn't empty. There was a folded rest stop brochure, a name tag, and a small, round object wrapped in tissue. He unwrapped it slowly. It was a watch, old-fashioned, cracked face, the hands frozen at 2:37. For a second, Ethan couldn't move. The ticking that had vanished earlier began again, faint and distant, but this time it wasn't from the wall clock. It came from the watch. He set it down on the counter. "Whose is it?" he murmured. The reflection behind the glass answered in his own voice, perfectly calm. "Yours." The ticking grew louder, filling the room. Each tick echoed like a heartbeat. He stumbled backward, eyes locked on the watch as the hands began to move in reverse. Outside, the fog began to shift, swirling faster, pulling away from the building. Through it, he saw shapes, countless travelers standing still, facing the rest stop, eyes open but empty. Their mouths moved in silence, all whispering the same thing he couldn't quite hear. Then as one, they vanished. The lights flickered violently. The hum grew louder, and the watch stopped. Everything fell silent again. Ethan looked down at the counter. The box was gone. So was the brochure. So was his reflection. Days or nights passed without measure. Travelers still came and went, though Ethan couldn't tell if they were real or just echoes of people who once were. They asked for coffee, for directions, for change. He smiled, answered, served. Each time they left, he caught their reflections lingering longer than they did. One night, a young woman entered, shivering, pale, eyes darting around. "Hey," she said softly, "do you know what happened here?" "My GPS keeps rerouting me back to this exit." Ethan smiled, the kind of tired smile that came easy now. "It does that sometimes." She frowned. "Is there another way out?" He looked past her, out the window. The fog had thickened again, swallowing the highway. "Not tonight." She sighed and sat by the window, scrolling her phone. "Feels like I've been driving in circles," she muttered. He poured her coffee. The steam curled upward, forming slow shapes that looked almost like words before fading away. "You'll be fine," he said. "Morning's close." She smiled weakly. You sound like you've been here a while. He nodded once. Long enough. When she looked up again, the lights flickered. The fog pressed against the glass. Her reflection didn't move with her. Thanks for the coffee, she whispered, standing. He watched her leave. The door chimed softly. Outside, she walked toward her car. The fog closed around her. The taillights glowed once, then vanished. Ethan turned back to the counter. The clock ticked once. 2:37 a.m. He exhaled, steady and calm. The world held its breath. Then the door chimed again. A man stepped in, rubbing his eyes, glancing around. Hey, you guys open? Ethan smiled. Always. The camera would fade out there if this were a film fog creeping across the floor. The sign outside flickering faintly before going dark. Rest area closed until further notice, but inside the coffee was still warm. And behind the counter, Ethan never stopped smiling.